Lots of people are growing tomatoes this year, and some for the first time, because we've had more time on our hands and everyone has been looking at growing veg at home. So I'm going to look at potting on tomatoes and some other tomato care and tips. And here we have a tomato plant. Now I've deliberately left this one in the pot longer than would be usual in order to show how you need to see that this tomato plant needs repotting. It's much too big for its pot compared to this one, which is a reasonable size and proportion in relation to the pot and can probably remain in that pot for another couple of weeks or so, but will need repotting. So what you need to think about when you're repotting is the size of pot. I'm going to repot. What you need to think about when repotting tomatoes is the size of pot, because it is quite important. And I'm going to repot into this one. This is a few sizes up, but it's not anything like as large as the eventual pot for the tomato. You can't put a smallish plant into a big pot because it will not thrive. So with tomatoes you have to pot up in stages. It's a bit of a bind, but it's necessary to keep them thriving and growing into really good healthy plants. So the other thing that get asked a lot about on tomatoes, and another reason why I've kept this plant out, is side shoots. And people get confused about taking off side shoots, what's side shoots and what's a branch. Now this tomato plant didn't arrive with me in a great condition. It's one that I bought rather than grew from seed. So it's got rather stumpy branches there because they were bashed and dead and I had to cut them off. It will come good, but it did arrive in a bit of a battered state. But what you can see here, 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 here are the side shoots. Why remove them? Well, tomatoes are a really vigorous plant and these side shoots will grow yet more branches, and what you will end up with is a plant that is all branch and all leaves and not enough flowers and fruit. So this is what's called a cordon tomato, which is straight up, and what it should look like is a single trunk with single branches coming off it, not branches coming off at these right angles as well. So what you need to do, and you need to do it with all tomatoes of this type, but not the bush tomatoes like that you put into hanging baskets. They don't need this treatment, but all upright tomatoes, you need to remove these side shoots and stop them growing. Otherwise you will have just a mass of tomato branches and leaves. And what we want the plant to do is produce flowers and fruit. So what we're going to do is repot it. So remove it from its current tie, gently protecting the stem. Take it out of the pot, loosen the roots and sink it into the new pot. With tomatoes, the one thing you need to remember, if you're growing a grafted plant, if you've paid for a grafted plant, which is more expensive, is you must keep the graft above soil level. So when you repot it, you must ensure that the graft is up above the soil, and you will be able to see it when you look at the plant. This is not a grafted plant, so this and any others that aren't grafted, you can pretty well just plonk them in the pot. And this is some compost that I've got to fill it up. Now when you fill the pot up with compost, it looks like it's quite full, but actually if you just tamp it down a bit, you'll see that it drops down quite a lot around the edges, so it's not actually completely full. And what you're doing there is clearing out the air pockets, because you do not want air pockets in the plant. If the roots growing underneath here hit an air pocket, there's no food or nutrient or water from there, and the roots will wither and the plant will not thrive. So you don't want to compact it tightly, but you want to make sure that you don't have any air pockets. And I'm going to use just a thin stick at this stage to support it, because it's going to go from this pot into a much larger pot, and at that point I'm going to put maybe one or two quite heavy canes in to support the plant and the weight of hopefully the fruit and tomatoes at a later stage. I can use this tie again because it just needs a loose bit of support at this stage. It's a very small plant, but later on it will need a lot of support and quite a lot of soft ties keeping the plant tied into the canes and supporting it. So it's happily repotted there. That will be fine. The most important thing when you repot is to water. This watering can may look surprisingly small, and that's because I've been using it in the greenhouse, and I'm still using it for watering quite small seedlings and small plants. But before much longer, obviously I'll get a bigger watering can out, because tomatoes, as they grow, and also cucumbers, need a lot of watering and food and feeding. And one of the most important things getting good tomatoes is watering and feeding. So don't let your tomatoes dry out. They may need watering every day when it's very dry, particularly in a greenhouse, and they need feeding regularly, once or twice a week, as soon as the flowers start to appear and you get the little yellow trusses of flowers appearing. Start to feed them. And the watering and feeding is really important, and that it's done regularly, because one of the main causes for the skin splitting on tomatoes or impaired flavour is that they've had a poor watering and feeding regime, and it's gone from being very dry to getting lots of water and food. What you want to do is to keep it regular, and you should end up with really nice tomatoes at the end of the season. This is a little chilli plant. This will be the next one to be potted on. You can see that that's also quite large in proportion to its pot. Once I've potted the chilli plant on, that can go out in the garden where it's now quite warm and we are frost free. And also, before we leave the greenhouse, the strawberry hanging basket is doing really well now. It's absolutely covered in fruit. There's no discernible difference in pollination between one side, which I hand pollinated, and the other side, which I've let the pollinators coming into the greenhouse pollinate. The only thing I've taken great care with is to water it virtually daily, so that it's not dried out and it's had plenty of water. It's quite a convenient way to grow strawberries, because they're going to be easy to pick and I don't have to net it. The downside is very regular watering. But it's certainly proved to be an easy way of growing strawberries, particularly if you don't have a lot of space. What we're going to do now is take a look outside in the vegetable plot and a look at a few other things that we can be doing in the garden in June.